Gear change. Beautiful. It will pull skin off a rice pudding, but it might make a meal out of it, albeit rice pudding never makes a good meal. The whole concept of sports saloons was taking practical, everyday, mass-produced cars and pepping them up and giving sports car performance to average people. And when you think about sports cars, what do we think about? Sports saloons rather. We think about Lotus Carlton or Sierra Cosworth. However, they've been around for quite some time. It isn't the 80s or 90s. No, I'm thinking early 60s. And the one car we come to look at today has the words Vitesse in this particular sports car saloon. And no, it isn't Bugatti Vitesse, no. But Vitesse means speed in French. And this car has got some speed, well, certainly relatively speaking, for the early 60s. And if you've not guessed it yet, today we're talking about the Triumph Vitesse. So you could be mistaken for thinking that this is a Triumph Herald, that lovely, much loved, ubiquitous car of the 50s and 60s. However, this is probably the godfather or the forefather of that aforementioned sports saloon. So what's the difference then? Well, beneath these gloriously styled Mercalotti lines, we have a beautiful IRS suspension setup, which is very, very innovative for its day, and a silky smooth 6-cylinder engine, which we'll talk about very, very shortly. But this gave sports car performance to the masses, and in 1966 for the Mark II version had a 2-litre engine, which really planted this car in fierce competition with some of its stablemates, including the MGB Roadster and of course the Sunbeam Alpine. So despite its very, very sharp and symmetrical and stylish looks this car had, and it is a bit of a timeless look, especially with the hardtop, this actually is pretty archaic in terms of its construction. Yes, this is a chassis on body construction which obviously predated in the Triumph Herald and even saw action as late as the Triumph Spitfire. However, at the time, Triumph didn't have the capacity to produce monocoque cars. However, it makes no difference. This was a massively successful sports saloon, and I'm sure lives long in the memory of many people growing up in the 50s, 60s and 70s. So this particular car is remarkably original, and it's a 1966 car, and it's one of the last 1.6 powered cars before it went on to the 2-litre straight 6 engine. However, whilst very, very original, the car is remarkably straight. And despite some of the differences that you'll see across the car between the Herald and the Vitesse, one of the key differences, of course, would be those twin headlights looking quite angry and purposeful, and of course that different grille meant that this, for those youngsters or those progressive youngsters back in the day looking for some sports car performance, this was certainly one of the cars they opted for. Inside the Triumph Vitesse, it does feel very much like an upmarket Herald. However, you do have lots more gauges, that beautiful wooden dash and wooden cappings, and a very sporty upright position that gives you the feeling that you're in something very special, certainly during the early 60s. This particular car has even more extra gauges, of course, with a vacuum gauge there, which I think is super cool, and also some extra gauge or some extra power sockets, etc., just in the middle there. But a fantastic and complete little package for what is, almost a 60-year-old car now. So the engineering underneath the Vitesse is one of the things that make it quite an interesting and innovative car for its time. This straight 6 engine is definitely the star of the show. It's not about outright power, it's about smoothness, refinement and character, and it's got character in spades. This Vitesse, the level of sophistication that few cars could really even match during the period. However, things get really interesting towards the back end. Of course, we can't see now, but with that swing axles and transverse leaf suspension made what was quite a sophisticated ride also a bit of a daring ride if you were to push it hard through the corners with certain scope for oversteer, as you got positive camber on the outside wheel. Well, that was a very brisk takeoff. Now, I'm not sure whether there's Syncromesh on the gearbox. I'm glad that Steve isn't in the car, actually, because it took me a couple of attempts to get into gear. But sounds great, actually, and that upright seating position is actually quite comfortable. Good visibility, and as I say, bit of a great sound. Let's see whether I can get these gears right now. Yeah, definitely an element of just taking your time, a bit of double clutching potentially, just to make sure that you're not doing any undue damage. Now this car, as I said, just have over... Oh, there I go again. I might have lost a friend at the end of today. I'll keep crunching this gearbox. But away we go. And one of the things you'll notice straight away, obviously the steering isn't assisted, but it's quite light and there's lots of feedback, which again makes the ride quite pleasurable. That's in fourth now, and we do have a little overdrive switch here, which I'll just push down and give it a go. And there we are, very smooth switch into overdrive. And now I'm sitting at about 40 miles an hour, and it seems okay. Again, it's not a car to be hooning around necessarily. It's a car to be enjoyed, that refinement, albeit that relative refinement. And I guess that sound, that silky sound of that straight six engine. It's definitely quite neat and nimble. As I say, lots of feedback and not much body roll. So far, so good. Now, this car, it will pull skin off a rice pudding, but it might make a meal out of it, albeit rice pudding never makes a good meal. This has got about a 70 horsepower engine, so it's a 0 to 60 of about 18 seconds. It's only when they got to that 2-litre engine, 66, you can really see a massive improvement of 104 horsepower, 104, and a 0 to 60 of about 12 seconds. However, even in the 1.6 guys, given the feel, the feedback, the tactile nature of the car, it feels like it's probably enough, especially with the overdrive. Get this beautiful vista. This is definitely the natural habitat for this car. Open country roads, which are incidentally quite quiet. This beautiful sounding 6-cylinder engine, and what is quite a great car to drive in terms of its feedback. I think the other thing I like about it already is the fact that it's not that really comfortable but upright sitting position. So you very much feel like you are driving the car, you're in it, not on top of it. And it's quite an experience. And I guess if I was driving this in 1966, it would feel a very much market experience with this lovely walnut clappings that we have here. So we've stopped here. I'm going to give it some beans. Again, my mate's not here, so he can't tell me off. So again, finding first is a bit of a challenge. So it's going to give it some revs and see what it's like. All 70 horsepower now, pushing me forward on this lovely A road. So this has a close ratio gearbox, and again, it reinforces that sporting disposition of the car. However, finding the gears can be a bit of a challenge. And so, you know, if you're not double clutching, you're going to be crunching a lot and changing your gearbox more often than you're changing your underpads on a summer day, I suspect. So it's been a bit of a schooling for me, having not driven a car of this type for some time. However, it just all adds to the charm. And it is quite an innovative package. And as I say, we're not blasting down the A roads or trying to overtake cars. You're very much taking in, it's an assault on all the senses. You're listening to that lovely engine. You're taking in the feedback from the car. You're listening to those characterful crackles and squeaks and bangs. But what we're driving here is something that has a story. It's got a history, and it's certainly got an appeal, and it is very, very eye-catching and certainly very charismatic to drive. That does sound delightful. And that gear change actually was one of my better ones. Let's go get to third. Oh, beautiful. That was a beautiful change of gear. You definitely have to drive this car. There is no chance of you getting it just driving it as you think your Corsa or your Fiesta or whatever. You have to be at one. You have to know where the engine's doing, what the revs are doing, and make sure you pick your gear at the right time. It is definitely an assault on the senses, but once you start to work out how to use it, the car does become very rewarding and lots of fun. Oh, that good. That gear change, beautiful.
I'll leave a note.
Now just don't tell your dad about those gear changes. Let's never mention it, okay? It's all working.
We'll have to wait for him to see the video.
Yeah. Right, okay. Well, this is Steve.
Hi.
And Steve has very kindly let me use his Vitesse. You've had it for some time now, haven't you, Steve? How long have you had it for?
It's 17 years we've had it for. So, yeah, bought it off a guy's estate. So a guy had treasured it and done a bit of work on it and quite liked that. So ended up buying it off his son. But came with a good history file as well, which is very good to see. So all the old MOTs and tax lists and stuff like that. So a bit of interest.
So it's very much a known quantity.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was new to me. I was not into old cars at the time. I was looking for a Fiat 126 at the time, but I'd lost out on the eBay auction.
Oh, right, okay. Dreaded eBay auctions.
And then went to almost like the next auction that was ending, saw this one and thought it looked good and price was right. And
okay.
And put in a silly bid and won it.
So 17 years later, was that a good decision?
Yeah, I think so. We enjoy the car. It doesn't get an awful lot of use, but we've done some road trips and we like going out every now and again. But it's just different to the everyday modern cars that we drive. So yeah, enjoy it.
It certainly is a head turner. I've been to a few shows actually with Steve with this car, and it's definitely always the star of the show, isn't it? So
well, people, a lot of people recognise it. I think. You know, their dad had one or the Herald, so they do come across and have a chat. That's,
and if someone
part of the fun.
And if someone's looking to buy a Triumph Herald, what kind of things should they be looking for? Or a Vitesse? That was a fraudulent slip there, by the way.
That's
pulling his chain. It's all good.
Don't call it a Herald. But same with the Herald. All old cars, old British cars in particular, it's rust is what kills most of them. As such, and then mechanical condition of them, and do they MOT them or not, which is a good test, I suppose, of how well they maintain it.
Yeah.
You get the hobbyist, and they look after them. You see they tinker with them, and they get them looking nice, and go and see the car. I would advise it as opposed to just buying it over an auction
site.
So definitely go and see it and make sure it's what you want.
So you took for the team then? You took the risk and did okay?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, so we've done okay. It's needed some work, but it's 60-year-old car. We've had to do some regular maintenance on it, the brakes, the cooling system, the drive line. These things they wear out, or the grease dries up in the UJs, and we've got to change them.
And a last question, in terms of like parts availability mechanically, I mean, pretty accessible.
Yeah, but better than ever. But the last 20 years, I think the parts business has grown and grown. The quality of the parts is some of it's actually atrocious. Some of the parts that you do
like rubber parts or
rubber, mechanical, contact breaker points. Just that the modern parts you buy, they are fairly cheap and cheerful, but they can fail quite easily.
So would your advice be to refurb old parts over buying new parts?
If you can get some decent parts, yeah, absolutely. Or go to the club support. So a lot of these cars, certainly there's Triumph, the MG, the Jaguar, all those clubs, they do that part support, and hopefully they get the feedback from the members to buy the good stuff, I would think. But yeah, so parts is a bit of an issue.
Well, thanks, Steve, for
Yeah.
letting me
Thank you very
use your
much,
car.
yeah.
It's been
Good
an
to see
absolute
you.
blast,
Good to see
actually.
you, yeah.
I love the sound. It is so silky smooth, and those that are looking for an introduction to classic hobby cars, got a young family, then this is ideal with those seats in the back. So lots of miles
Yeah.
and lots of smiles.
That's it. Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Cheers, top man. How do I sum this car up then? Well, this car was a godfather or the template for putting power in a family 4-seater saloon. And it did it very well, certainly that 2-litre guise. And whilst it may not have the kind of prowess or the glamour potentially of some other sports cars, what it does have, and what it does very well, is a very big heart. And it does, I am sure, for many people, have a very big place in history too. Thanks for watching.